the woman who sent books to the world. Once upon a time, nestled in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of an ever-bustling city, there lived an unassuming woman named Miriam. She was not famous, nor did she possess great wealth. She did not stand out in a crowd, nor seek the spotlight. But in the silent sanctuary of her small, sunlit home, Miriam fostered a passion that would one day send ripples of change around the world, a passion for books, for stories, and for the transformative magic of the written word. Miriam's childhood had been marked by poverty. The daughter of immigrants, she grew up in a home where books were a rare treasure. Her father worked night shifts at a factory, and her mother cleaned houses, their hands always rough and tired. Yet, amidst the daily struggle, there was one constant comfort: her mother's voice, reading aloud from a battered library book late into the night. Books were their escape, their adventure, their hope. Miriam learned, very young, that a story could be a window to another world. As she grew older, Miriam devoured every book she could find. She became a regular at the local library, where the librarians, kindly women with glasses perched on the tips of their noses, would set aside books they thought she might love. Through stories, she traveled to distant lands, met heroes and heroines, and learned about kindness, courage, and the resilience of the human spirit. Years passed. Miriam went to college, the first in her family to do so. She became a teacher, determined to ignite the same love of reading in her students. But even as she grew older, she never forgot the longing she'd felt as a child, the yearning for books, for stories, for a chance to dream. One crisp autumn evening, a letter arrived from her cousin in a war-torn country far away. It spoke of hardship, of fear, and of the children who had lost not just their homes, but their hope. "They have nothing," her cousin wrote. "No toys, no books. Their world is small and grey." Miriam's heart ached as she read those words. She remembered her own childhood, the hunger for stories, the solace of a mother's voice in the darkness. That night, as the city lights blinked outside her window, Miriam made a decision that would change countless lives, though she did not know it yet. She gathered the books she had loved as a child, the fairy tales, the adventures, the poetry. She wrote to her friends, asking them to donate books their children had outgrown. She posted on social media, explaining her mission: to send books to children who had none, to bring light into darkness, to offer hope where it was needed most. At first, the response was small. A neighbor dropped off a box of picture books. A former student sent a stack of novels. But soon, the word spread. Boxes began to arrive from across the city, then from other states. People wrote letters, sharing their own stories of how books had changed their lives. Some sent money to help with shipping costs. Others volunteered their time, sorting and packing books in Miriam's tiny living room, which soon overflowed with towers of stories waiting to be sent into the world. Miriam called her project Books Without Borders. She worked late into the night, carefully packing each box, tucking in notes of encouragement, and imagining the children who would receive them. She partnered with aid organizations, schools, and libraries in countries ravaged by war, poverty, and disaster. She sent books to refugee camps, orphanages, and remote villages. Each box was a seed of hope, a promise that someone, somewhere, cared. The impact was immediate and profound. Letters poured in from children who had received the books. "I have never owned a book before," wrote a young girl from Syria. "Now, I read to my little brother every night." A boy from Kenya wrote, "The stories made me believe I can be a hero, too." A teacher in a refugee camp wrote, "Your books brought laughter and dreams back to our classroom." But Miriam's journey was not without challenges. There were days when customs officials held up shipments, when funds ran low, when she wondered if her efforts mattered at all. There were moments when the scale of suffering in the world felt overwhelming, and her small acts seemed like drops in an endless ocean. Yet, in those moments, she remembered her mother's voice, reading by candlelight, offering comfort in the darkness. She remembered the power of a single story to change a life. And so, she pressed on. As the years passed, Books Without Borders grew. Volunteers joined from around the globe. Schools held book drives, children wrote letters of encouragement to their peers in distant lands, and publishers donated new books. Miriam became a quiet force for good, connecting people through the universal language of stories. One day, a young man appeared at her door. He introduced himself as Amir, a former refugee from a country torn apart by war. He held a battered copy of The Little Prince in his hands. "You sent this book to my camp when I was a boy," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "It gave me hope. It made me dream of a better life. Now, I am studying to be a teacher. I want to give back, like you did." Tears filled Miriam's eyes as she listened. In that moment, she understood that her efforts had been more than just the sending of books, they had been the planting of seeds. Seeds of hope, of possibility, of connection. She saw that, while the world was vast and often filled with suffering, even the smallest act of kindness could light a spark that would travel across continents, touching hearts and changing lives. The story of Miriam, the woman who sent books to the world, reminds us that we are all capable of making a difference, no matter how ordinary we may seem. Her journey teaches us that hope is not a grand gesture, but a series of small, persistent acts. That every book shared, every story told, every hand extended in kindness, contributes to a tapestry of compassion that can bridge even the widest divides. In the end, Miriam's legacy was not measured in the number of books she sent, but in the lives she touched, the dreams she inspired, and the hope she restored. She showed the world that the greatest power lies not in wealth or fame, but in the courage to care, the willingness to act, and the belief that, together, we can write a better story for the world. Even now, somewhere far away, a child turns the page of a book sent by a stranger, and a new story begins. Every journey of change, every story of hope, starts with a single step, a single book, a single act of kindness, a single decision to make a difference. What story will you choose to write with your life?